Hello and welcome to the Littlest Sewing Room. Today I'm going to be changing out this old Ace clutch motor on my Singer 20U for this lovely, shiny, very small, silent running jack 530 servo motor. The first thing I've needed to do is unhook the foot pedal from the motor. I will have to reuse the hook just because of the nature of this very old table and how the hooks work. The second thing, I've got to undo all the screws on all the electrics. So I need to undo those two screws on the switch. There's some more screws holding the cables in place that run round the back and into the motor. A little reminder, always make sure everything is unplugged when you start doing this, okay, because we don't want anyone getting electrocuted. But the first thing I need to do is remove the switch housing at the front of the machine. So it's just a screw on the left and a screw on the right. So the next thing I need to do is to unhook the belt. So the first thing I need to do is to tilt the machine back, and then I will reach down and I will unhook the belt from the pulley. And that is your belt freed from the motor. So the next thing we need to do is loosen the bolts that are holding this motor in place. So there's one at the front here and two at the back. They're a 14mm spanner, which is pretty standard, but your machine may take a different size spanner. So I'm going to carefully slacken all three of these bolts off at the same time in a gradual way, because this motor is very heavy and I really don't want it dropping on my foot. So yeah, when you're removing a clutch motor, remember that the motors are heavy. They can cause significant damage if they land on an extremity. So just remove them very, very carefully. Ideally, if you have someone who can help you, who can just support the weight of the motor while you undo it. As I do this, because I'm doing it myself, I'm going to put a couple of pillows on the floor underneath this motor, so that when it reaches the point where it is about to drop, if it does suddenly go, it's not going to cause damage to anything. Now I've got the old motor off, I thought I'd just quickly show you the size comparisons between these two. Obviously, this one here is the new servo motor, and that is the big old clutch motor. There's a couple of reasons why I'm doing this. The main one, well, main one is the fact that it's starting to act up and it's starting to have issues. Now I could strip down and rebuild the clutch motor, but I don't really want to. It's a big old beast. It's probably been with the machine since it was brand new, so I think it's time for a new upgraded replacement. The other thing is with these motors is the noise factor. These big old clutch motors can be very, very noisy, whereas these servo motors, these small tiny servo motors, are pretty silent running, which is very handy in this space, because listening to a motor bzzz away all day kind of can give you a headache. But yeah, this is the little servo motor I'm going to be fitting, so let's get to it. So that's the motor fitted on the back of the machine. The bolt holes that you require are exactly the same as the old clutch motor that came off, so that's actually a really good thing that the bracket has been standardized. I did use the new hardware rather than using the old bolts, because they are a little bit shorter, which makes fitting this motor that little bit easier. The next thing I'm going to do is fit the switch to the front, and then connect all our wiring. Okay, this is the switch to the jack motor. As you can see, it's quite big and bulky compared to the switches that come with clutch motors. That's because this is a programmable motor. So in here there's various computer panels, because you can program the speeds, etc. of this motor. I'll go into that in more detail later when I do an overview of the motor. But right now I'm looking at the placement where I need this switch underneath the machine, because as you can see, it's quite long, it's quite bulky, so we've got to get this right. So now I've got my switch into position, I just need to tighten the screws that will hold it in place. There's one at the front and then there's one at the back. So that's the motor fitted in place. Now we need to connect all the wires from the motor to the switch and see where we need to put our cable holders. So now the motor's all connected, I can see exactly where I want to hook and pin my wires so they're out of the way. Now I've got the wires nicely out of the way, I'm just going to give the motor a quick test to make sure it's working. Which it is, it's running very nicely. Now the next thing I'll need to do is to connect the belt. Now one thing you might find, like I have done today, is that the old belt that you have won't fit anymore. My old belt's now too long. So what I need to do is I need to order a new belt that is the correct length for this motor, and then I can test it working the sewing machine. So my new belt has arrived for this machine. I've gone for a leather industrial belt because the measurement between the hand wheel and the motor is an in-between size to use a V-belt. So let's get this fitted. So I've now wrapped the new belt around the pulley on the hand wheel and the pulley on the motor, and I just need to mark it to see where I need to cut it to make sure the belt is the correct size. So in order to cut these belts, you can either use a wire cutter, or I'm just using the wire cutter on these small pliers. Get it on your line, and you measured it to, and then just slice it through like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a hole in this belt so that I can fit the metal clip that holds the belt together. Make sure you get your hole as central as possible within the belt, because obviously this makes it stronger. If it's too close to the left or the right, then the belt will tear. You need to make a hole in this side and this end as well. So now I've made holes in either end of the belt, I need to fit and close the metal clip. Our ends in contact together like this. So now your clip's in like this, and then we take a pair of pliers to close the clip. Again, as I say, it can be quite fiddly, it can be a bit of a pain. You just need to use a bit of patience with it. So now our two ends look like this, they're nicely held together, and now it's time to fit the belt to the machine. So in order to fit the belt to the machine, we just do the reverse of what we did to take the belt off. So I've hooked it around the bottom pulley. I'm now going to tilt my machine back and then put the belt around the hand wheel, like so, and put the machine back down, and that's our belt in place. Now it's time to test the machine. I can do small adjustments to the belt. Obviously, as it wears, it will stretch. I've got spare clips, so I can shorten it as required if needed. So to make sure the motor is in the correct position underneath the table, I have got a couple of minor things to adjust. So obviously your motor can be set further back or further forwards, depending on this bracket here. I've got it pulled right forward, so I just need to tighten this Allen key fitting here. And then obviously you've got the angle and depth of the motor from the machine, which is this screw here that I just need to tighten this bolt down. So nothing will move when I'm sewing. So that's the machine all set up. Let's just give the motor a test. So there we have it, the jack servo motor. I will be doing a further video about this motor because it is programmable, so I will run through the programs that it has on it with you. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.